If there's one thing that I heartily disagree with, it's that as you get older, you completely grow out of toilet humour. It's supposed to be that once you grow hair upon your hacky sack, when you start earning a crust, and when you enjoy the company of lady humans rather than go ew when they enter the room, that your humour should turn more sophisticated. This has never happened to anyone. Farts are still funny, especially when timed to perfection. I doubt I'm alone with this. Some of us can enjoy Stuart Lee or George Carlin too, but even the most austere wine-drinking guardian Easter who sneers at the underclasses will probably let out a guffaw if a random stranger slipped over in a bit of dog poo. If you can still have the sense of humour of a 10-year-old boy, and I suspect you do, this game could well be for you. How to Be a Complete Bastard is one of those games that nearly everyone who grew up playing computer games in the UK during the 80s would know of. It's certainly well covered on YouTube because, well, the name sticks with you, doesn't it? While other games were using titles loaded with letters like X and Z for their spaceship shooters, or using the popularity of TV, toys or movies to hawk their wares, Virgin Games went straight for the Profanosaurus and put a swear word on the cover of their game. Excellent marketing, if you ask me. I first encountered it, along with many other people, as part of Your Sinclair's main 1991 Magnificent 7 tape cassette. Such illicit fruit hanging on that magazine. And the game, from a crass, poopy humour point of view, certainly delivers. But what on earth is it? What is this cursing filth that Virgin and later Your Sinclair has foisted upon the youth of the United Kingdom in the late 80s and early 90s? For that, we can blame one of the pioneers of 80s alternative comedy, the legendary Adrian Edmonson. That's him in the marketing there. Hello, Signor. Adrian is, of course, most famous for his partnership with fellow comedian Jennifer Saunders. They exchanged bodily fluids and had children. I kid. The comedian partner who we all associate with Adrian, who may or may not have shared bedroom gruffins together, is good old Rick Mayall. We know them most fondly from sitcoms such as Filthy Rich and Catflap, The Young Ones and Bottom. But before that, they studied drama together at Manchester University, alongside fellow Young Ones Penn Smiths Lise Mayer and Ben Elton. The pair started performing comedy routines together, soon building up quite the fan base at Soho's Comedy Store. One of their sketches was The Dangerous Brothers, aka Richard and Sir Adrian Dangerous. The slapstick violent deviants would prove to be the genus of most of their later comedic successes. How to Be a Complete Bastard was a book spun off from the Sir Adrian Dangerous character and ended up being incredibly popular. It was penned by Edmonson himself, aided and indeed abetted by comedy authors Mark Lee and Mike Lepine. The book was a humorously scripted instructional guide on how to duly wind up and be ghastly to other people going about their daily business in a variety of different ways. If that kind of notion appeals to you, you bally rascal, you best source this out of print tome, and then you'll be qualified to be the menace about town that you've always wanted to be. The book, no doubt aided by Edmondson's doting fan base, sold in large numbers to the point of it becoming a multimedia project before multimedia projects were a thing at all that horrible corporate marketing folk would flap their gums about in the later decades. In addition to the computer game, we were also given the opportunity of buying a board game. Now, a board game is like a video game, but made from cardboard, and you have to converse and interact with real human faces. So the computer game is therefore better. Richard Branson's Virgin Games were the publishing house, and they decided that all the anarchic lunacy should be coded by Sentient Software, a fairly unremarkable programming team who tapped in the language that made your 8-bits spew Taipan and the Scruples board game adaptation onto your telly. The premise of this game is that you, as Adrian Edmonson, have happened upon a house party full of sophisticated yuppies, and you have decided that this is something that you wouldn't like to be going on around you, so you elect to ruin it in the most gratuitous and sinister ways possible. The best way to derail a party is to absolutely terrify the people at it in the worst ways possible. Once you've tormented all 16 guests, you can be satisfied by your evening's twattery and can sit down in sociopathic glee, and you'll also get this hilarious ending. Haha, because that's also a word for a vagina. Some of the acts you can do are fairly mundane and just mildly annoying, such as throwing a spider at a passerby or chuffing in a living room. Things that a lot of us have done, I would say. But then they range as far as nailing another human to the floor or putting makeup or perfume on a fella to make the other partygoers beat them up in a homophobic rage. That's pretty bleak, isn't it? The various meters will determine what you can do. A drunk Adrian is more likely to commit more heinous acts, but there's also the disadvantage of the room spinning around, which makes it very hard to do these dastardly deeds. You can top up your drunkometer via stealing extra strength lager from the fridge, or reduce it by having a cheeky Jimmy Riddle, not necessarily in the toilet. The fartometer will need to be full if you want to chuff a room empty, but if you let one go near a flame, well, you might burn your bum hair and the flesh around it. The game has a very unique 2-screen viewpoint, which is extremely baffling on initial boot up. It's designed to show a sort of 3D space, so you're pressing up in a room will see you shuffle up northwards on one screen and westerly on the other. It's a bold choice by Sentient Software, but I'm not convinced it's a great one. Looking at the back of bathroom cabinets and the like is strange. And whilst repeated goes will certainly get used to playing this way, it's never convincing that this distinct viewpoint is actually a decent idea, or even a visually appealing one. It would have been much better if it was viewed from an isometric perspective, but perhaps Sentient Software weren't confident in their abilities to pull that off. Another disappointment is that all of your despicable actions are performed by accessing a menu list of commands. This will incorporate every single action you do in the game, from picking up, from pissing, chopping, trashing, chuffing, and dumping ice cubes into ladies' knickers. Yes, everything. Now, this works fine in terms of gameplay, but also you get the results of your hooliganism in the same box outs. Most of the wanton violence is hilarious, but it surely would have been far funnier to see someone stuck to the toilet seat with superglue, or to see Aid savage someone's head with shears. Yes, limitations of the machine and all that, I understand that. Memory is sparse in your Commodore 64 and your Spectrum, but for a game about slapstick comedy, it would be nice to see a stick actually slap, instead of watching sprites wandering hither and thither in a confusing semi-detached house. Despite these flaws, How to Be a Complete Bastard is quite a compulsive play. I kept at it, seeing what kind of demeaning horrors I could inflict on strangers, and its childish anarchy is certainly an enjoyably unique venture. There was very little like this on the computers of the era, and if we're comparing it to the other game where you could play as Adrian Edmonson, that being Orpheus's Young Ones title, well, there's no comparison at all. How to Be a Complete Bastard is far better than the Young Ones. How to Be a Complete Bastard sort of gives you that same feral buzz as tying an innocent to the train tracks in Red Dead Redemption 2, or pushing a jogger into the sea in Grand Theft Auto 5. Sometimes it just feels good to be bad. In my opinion, it could be better, but you could do a lot worse than do yourself a favour and learn how to be a complete bastard. Crash Magazine gave it a 73% in their October 1987 edition and said that How to Be a Complete Bastard is a humorous and generally good game, but perhaps lacking in lastability. CMVG reviewed the Commodore 64 and Amstrad games separately in December 1987. Their reviewers were rather split on this. Lee, who reviewed the Commodore 64 version, quite liked it. He gave it an 8 out of 10. But Paul, well, he called the Amstrad version crude, tasteless, and even worse, unfunny. Old Mary Whitehouse there gave it a 4 out of 10. So that's it for How to Be a Complete Bastard. And we're going to go from a guy who acts like a right wonky Willy to a Willy Wonka, as we're going to have a look at another book, that being Charlie and the Chocolate Factory on the 8-bit computers. So like, subscribe, and thanks, bye.